All right, ladies and gentlemen, my guest, Larry Dunlap. Oh, that was cool, Larry.
Yeah, that was kind of fun.
Larry Kuntz on guitar.
Yeah.
Who?
Larry Holloway is the bass player.
Oh, okay.
And Andy Fraga is the drummer.
Oh, okay.
And that was at a casino near Palm Springs, the Fantasy Springs Casino. And they were doing once a month on a Sunday afternoon a free concert. And they would bring in different people for the concert. Andy Fraga and Larry Holloway put it together every time, and they had different people each concert. Done it 3 times, I think.
Oh, that was really nice. Quite nice.
It's fun, yeah.
Yeah. You know, I just gave a lesson to a student, and I was talking about groove. So this student is not at all a jazz person. He's been a theater person and plays the ukulele and writes some songs. And so he was showing me a song that he wrote. And so we were talking about the composition of the song, the lyrics, and how he was singing it, which basically wasn't grooving. So we were talking about groove, and it's quite a challenge to teach groove to somebody who really doesn't get groove. Have you ever tried to do that?
I talk a lot about having good time when you play, which is a big part of it. But not specifically groove, no.
Yeah. It's an interesting subject because it's so married to time, right?
Yeah.
The quarter note, but yet it's not, it's like when I was at Berkeley, I remember they taught about not reading the paper, not reading the eighth notes, but giving them the jazz eighth notes. And I don't know, I guess that really stuck in my head because I never quite forgot what they talked about. But yet when I teach groove, it's of course I come up with all kinds of creative things. It's kind of like stripping, dun, 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 dun. People kind of can relate to that.
Yeah.
All kinds of stuff.
I was just watching a video of that band Stuff. You remember that band?
Oh, yeah.
And, God, everything was such a groove with that. Richard T. and Steve Gadd. Yeah. Really wonderful.
Yeah, man, those guys really, really grooved.
I saw them live once in New York.
Oh, you did?
Yeah.
Yeah. Stuff. That would be fun to look at. I'm writing that down. Excuse me. Yes, John K., there is a world of grooveless people. So sad.
Yeah.
I have a friend, I was just going to tell you, I have a friend, Armando Campion, the bass player, and we did a class on groove. I invited him to do a workshop, and he had a really good way of teaching a groove on a bossa nova. It really worked. I gotcha, I getcha, I gotcha, I getcha, I gotcha, I getcha. And that worked so well for people who just didn't have any concept of how that felt,
Right. It's sometimes it helps to have little words or phrases you can use.
Yeah.
My mother was a piano teacher, and she taught with this system of having different words for different, like a quarter note was Ted, 2/8 notes were Robert, right?
Huh.
Triplet was Marmalade.
Oh,
And four notes, like 4/16 notes, were Huckleberry, right?
huh.
Well, there was while she was still alive, there was a big tribute to her, and all she taught for 70 years, taught
Oh,
piano. So all these ex-piano students showed up, and they were talking about that. And no, maybe this was after my mother. No, I think my mother was still alive when we did this. But somebody said there was a word for fives. I can't remember what it was, and somebody said hippopotamus. And what was the word for hippopotamus? Hippopotamus for fives.
oh, that's interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've never heard of that
And I know
before.
Frank Zappa, a good friend of mine, used to work with Frank Zappa, Patrick O'Hearn, bass player,
Yeah.
and he told me once that Frank had a lot of little phrases to remember, how things were going. And the only one I remember was for 15, he had a phrase, every Holiday Inn has a kennel in back of it. Every Holiday Inn has a kennel in back of it. Every Holiday Inn has a kennel in back of it.
That's so trippy. Yeah.
Yeah.
Every holiday.
So that's a
ends.
nice, I mean, I think that's kind of goes back to like how a lot of, ancient people probably remembered rhythms and music and things, they had words
Yeah.
and things. They couldn't
Yeah.
write it down.
Yeah, yeah.
Uh-huh.
That's interesting. I'm going to think about that more. Speaking of your mom, obviously you came up around, that was one thing in your youth. Did you start playing piano very early, and was it because of her, or?
Yeah, I did. She never taught me herself. She always sent me to other teachers, but I started taking piano when I was 4 and studied on through college, and a little bit afterwards. I studied, when I first moved to the Bay Area, I took some classes from Art Landy. You know Art
Oh,
Landy?
yeah, yeah.
Yeah, that was pretty interesting. Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
We had, we would go to his home. There were, I think, 5 of us, and we would do, the class was all about free improvising. You know? We never played tunes. We just freely improvised, and kind of his whole point was, whatever you play, find some way to deal with it so it sounds like it's not a mistake.
Interesting.
But yeah, my mother was a piano teacher. My family was all musical. I grew up in a little town outside of Portland, Oregon. Forest Grove is the name of it. It's almost it's kind of a suburb of Portland now.
Yeah.
But when I was there, it was like, 40 minutes to drive into Portland. And yeah, we had the one music store in town. My sister sang opera, and my family all sang. And Forest Grove at that time every year had a celebration where they would go back to the 1890s,
Oh,
and so there were these barbershop quartets everywhere. And
wow.
all of us were in barbershop quartets.
Wow. How fun.
And that gives you, barbershop quartets give you a really nice knowledge of harmony.
Yeah.
The way that all the voices work together and
Yeah.
what notes to choose. And some of them sounded very modern. Some of the barbershop quartets would do contemporary kinds of things. There was always a contest on a Friday night where all these barbershop quartets from all over the country or all over the world would show up,
Huh.
and a competition, and then they would pick 4 or 5 of them to be in a show on Saturday night, and they would pick the top barbershop quartet. But in that show on Saturday night, there was also usually a banjo player and can-can dancers and old-time vaudeville comedians. And
Right.
that was neat.
Wow. Yeah. That must have been really fun.
Yeah.
And
And the church was a pretty big part of my growing up, too. My grandfather, who died before I was born, but he was a Methodist minister, and we were always very active in the Methodist church and singing, Onward Christian Soldiers and things like that. Yeah.
so so how did you discover jazz?
Well, that was mainly from the music store that we had. Well, I had a band director. I started in the fourth grade playing euphonium, baritone horn, like a small tuba.
Yeah.
And I played that all through college even. But the band director in the elementary school and junior high was a jazz musician.
Huh.
He played trumpet and vibes, and he took a little group of us in about the fourth grade and started teaching us about chords and a little bit about improvising. And yeah, so that was a big part of it. And then because my folks owned the music store, for a couple of years they had a coffee house in the back of the store. And you wouldn't go through the store. You'd come down this little narrow alley and you'd come to this courtyard in the middle of the block and then go up these stairs and you'd be in the back of the store. And it was called Cafe Fermata because the bird's eye is like stop and stay as long as you want. Right?
Yeah.
And they had pillows on the floor to sit on and modern art on the walls, and they served espresso and pastry.
Wow.
But they played jazz recordings, jazz LPs. So
Wow.
when that place closed, I inherited all of those. And that was like a big stack of LPs, and I still have a lot of them.
Wow.
And I used to listen to them a lot.
Yeah. Yeah, my husband, I think I told you a little, but my husband collects records. So, but although he's not a big jazz aficionado, but so most of his is rock and blues. And but he has 11,000 records, I think. And that includes, he also has 4,000 or 5,000 45s as well. So yeah, he's a big collector of that. So what attracted you to jazz? I mean, obviously you heard those. I'm sure it was the whole feeling. I mean, I'm not sure. I'm asking you, but I would imagine that the whole feeling of what you just described, the coffee house and, you know, the modern art and the pillows and everybody kind of leaning back and having espresso. And I would assume that
experience.
Yeah. But were you attracted to something particular to jazz?
How to explain? I don't know. I really liked just the nuances of playing jazz, you know, with a lot of little turns and, you know, funky little sounds. The first record I remember, which is still one of my favorites, was a record called We Three with Roy Haynes and Phineas Newborn and Paul Chambers. Great trio record. It's still a wonderful record. So that I was listening to a lot, and I asked my mother, I said, can I write to this guy and he maybe sends me this music that he's playing? And she said, no, he's mainly just making it up, you know. And I thought, oh, no, you know. So I got really intrigued by that. And I loved Andre Previn when I was a kid. I really got into his jazz playing. And my folks even said, well, if you can take lessons from Andre Previn sometime, we'll send you to where he is, you know. But I never pursued that. But I was a big fan of his music.
Yeah. Interesting. Do you remember any records that you just played over and over and over and over again?
Well, that one, of course. And then I was in a video chat thing that Tom Scott was in last night, and they asked him if he could take one recording with him to a desert island. What would it be, right?
Yeah.
And he said one that was also a big favorite of mine. I probably listened to it 500 times. Bill Evans with a symphony orchestra, Klaus Ogerman arrangements of mainly classical pieces, but done with improvisation. And it's
I don't think I've heard that one.
That's just the name of it. Bill Evans with symphony orchestra, and it's a great recording. But that one, another recording I got into a little bit later, but just loved was Stan Getz with Chick Corea, and I'm not sure who all was playing in the band, but Sweet Rain.
Yeah.
I like that one a lot. I guess when I was young, I was kind of absorbing vocal things, but I wasn't listening too much to vocal recordings, you know. Later on I was, and then, you know, as I became a professional player, I kind of specialized in working with singers, right? And I've always enjoyed working with singers. I think a lot of that is because my family, everybody was a singer, you know?
Yeah, yeah.
And we had a lot of music in the house, you know. We had actually this piano that's behind me was the piano in our home.
Oh,
And, we'd sit around the living room and, you know, play music, and other people would come, and yeah, it was a great environment to grow up in.
yeah. I grew up a little bit a little bit of that. I had twin sisters who were older than me, and they sang really beautifully, and one played piano. My dad was a sax player. My mom had been a singer. So my sisters and I were always at the piano, you know. And we did a lot of musical things growing up, you know, out in the community. And my dad was always hired by the family to do, you know, whatever, their parties. And of course we sang, and, you know.
Yeah.
So yeah, we were into that too. But yours sounds a little more than that. Sounds like more people coming through.
And this band director that I talked about when I was in elementary school,
Yeah,
every Downbeat magazine used to have an arrangement in the back.
right.
And he had saved them all. There was a stack like this of arrangements from Downbeats, and he gave them all to me at one point.
Oh,
And I just started, you know, if there were several instruments, I would reduce it down to just a piano thing so I could understand it. A lot of them I wrote out the parts and tried to get kids to play them with me, but usually they were too hard. But I learned a lot from doing that, you know, from those
Yeah.
arrangements. I wish Downbeat still had arrangements in the back of issues, you know.
yeah, yeah,
Of course, you can find, you know, things
yeah.
lots and lots of places. And before I really, well, before I was very much into jazz, I had a folk song trio that was like the Kingston Trio.
Oh,
And we all had matching short sleeve button down shirts. And
that's the important thing.
yeah. And but nobody played guitar. And so our instrument was me playing the auto harp. That was our accompanying instrument. And but we did a lot of old Kingston Trio.
Yeah,
You know. And actually, Bobbe, my wife,
yeah.
was the secretary for the Kingston Trio.
Get out of here.
When they were in the '60s, when they were a big
Oh
deal.
my God, how funny. That's wild.
Yeah.
Wow. Huh. Yeah, I sang some of that too. I played guitar and my cousin played banjo, and we both sang. We did hootenannies, and at the age of
hootenanny.
10, you know.
I
Yeah.
used to go into coffee houses in Portland and take out the auto harp and play some tunes. And actually, there was a guy named Earl Benson who was a decent singer, but he was kind of a slob, and he played in these coffee houses. He was sort of a hero, but he'd always be there in a ragged sweatshirt and something else. But his instrument was the auto harp. But he could do really good things with the auto harp, and he would play the auto harp and sing. And I think that kind of part of what attracted me to the auto harp. I can't imagine playing it now. It's a silly instrument.
Yeah. I can see that. So, what happened at college age? Did you go to college, or were you working?
Yeah. When I got out of high school, in high school I had a band that we played for a few dances, and but it was a funny band. It was me playing piano and sometimes baritone horn, and a guy who played, and a drummer, and a guy who played bass and tenor sax and clarinet. That was our trio.
Wow.
And we played a few dances. You know, there was a college in our town, Pacific University, and we played for some, student events and things. But Yeah, then after high school, um, I went to Lewis and Clark College,
Hmm.
and my high school band director, different band director now, but um, he had played in a lot of the big bands in the big band era, and he was a fine saxophone, clarinet, flute player, um, and he was part of a band that played at a lot of country clubs, and I did that all through college. I mean, I was like 30 years younger than anybody else in the band. Um, but we played all these country clubs, and I learned a lot of tunes that way because we were playing all the big band tunes and standards that people wanted to dance to. And I wrote some arrangements, and it was a nice band. It was four horns.
Hmm.
It was trumpet,
Wow.
trombone, alto, tenor, with some woodwind doublings, and then piano, bass, drums. And I did that all through college, made a little bit of money, and that got me through college. And then my senior year, I majored in composition, and my senior year, I did a recital. So I decided I would do, I would do some sort of classical things I'd written, but also some jazz tunes. And I got some musicians I knew, but some I didn't know who referred to me to play on the jazz tunes. And one of the guys said, "Oh, I'm part of a band that's forming right now. Why don't you come be a part of that band?" And I was just graduating, and I said, "Yeah, that sounds good." So that was a quartet with just one saxophone player and piano, bass, drums, and it was a great experience. But all those guys were also in another band called Carl Smith and the Natural Gas Company. And so I joined that band, and that was a band with six horns and two singers and a rhythm section. And I wrote lots and lots of arrangements for that band, and that was a great experience.
Was that a jazz group or?
Funky jazz, yeah. We played like a lot of Crusaders tunes and Tom Scott tunes and other things. Yeah.
Yeah. Cool.
But that was a great experience. So I did that for a couple years after I got out of college, and I got involved with a trio, basically a trio that this drummer put together. Tom Albring was his name, and he put together a trio. First, the bass player was David Friesen, fantastic bass player.
Yeah.
And David taught me so much, playing with him. When we first started playing, I still have it. He had like 4 pages of tunes. He just wrote down the names. He said,
Wow.
"Learn these tunes," So I started learning these tunes, and we would play them, and he would keep track of what key we played them in, and he would make me play them in a different key the next time we played them, and then a different key. And
Wow.
yeah, so that was great. And we had different singers. Eventually David Friesen left, and Pat O'Hearn became the bass player in that group. But we had a couple of singers, and one of them you would be very familiar with was Nancy King.
Wow.
And she was a big influence on me too. We learned a lot of tunes together, and she had some charts that had been written for her, and for a couple of years we worked together. And that was a really wonderful experience.
Yeah. She's an amazing singer. Yeah. So, and then I noticed in your resume or your bio, that you played with Cleo Laine for a long time and Mark Murphy, just to name a few,
Right.
big names.
Yeah. Eventually, it led to that. I came to San Francisco in the early 70s, like 73, 74. And one of the first jobs I got, I heard there was an audition for all the musicians to accompany the Pointer Sisters.
Oh.
And probably 60 people showed up at these auditions. And it went through this elimination process, and I eventually got the job. And I didn't work with them very long, less than a year, but that was a very good experience. And then I got a job working with Country Joe McDonald, Country Joe and the Fish. Except it wasn't the Fish at that time. So that was not a jazz thing at all.
Yeah.
And in fact, I just ran across a video on YouTube of us playing on a show in England called the Old Grey Whistle Test in 1976. It's pretty funny. You can hardly see me, but it's funny to see.
Wow.
So I got that. And then through the 80s, I played a lot with a band called Listen, featuring Mel Martin. And it was a really popular band in the Bay Area. And some great players were in that. Andy Narell was part of that band. Mel played woodwinds. David Dunaway played bass. Eddie Marshall sometimes played drums. George Marsh played drums most of the time. And we did a couple recordings. And by that time, I'd met Bobbe. For a short time, I dated someone you would know, Julie Kelly.
Oh my gosh.
And we were on a date one time to go see a good friend who was playing in a club down the peninsula, Flip Nunez, great keyboard player.
Yeah.
And the singer sat in. And I thought, wow, that's a great singer, you know. And as we were leaving, I stopped at the door. I said, Julie, just wait just a minute. And I went to the table where the singer was sitting, and I said, you're a great singer. If you ever need a piano player, and it was Bobbe, and I gave her my card. And she was at this table with like 12 guys, you know. And she asked somebody about me, and they said, oh, he's a good piano player. So we started getting together, and she sang on one of the Listen recordings that I was involved with that band at that time.
Wow, that's funny. And did you know Leela Thigpen?
Sorry, say again?
Leela Thigpen, did you know her?
Oh, Leela Thigpen, of course, yeah.
Yeah. She's been a friend of mine. In fact, we lived together for a little while when she moved here. And I gave her the gig in Vienna where she lives now.
Oh, okay.
I gave her...
I haven't been in touch with her for a long time.
Yeah, and of course, somebody who knew both of them, I'm sure, you knew Jim Nichols.
Jim Nichols, I see him. We live in the same little town, and I see Jim in the morning from time to time.
Yeah,
we used to play together a lot. Yeah.
He's just an amazing player.
Yeah.
Yeah. Actually, that's how I met Julie, through Jim, because he was living in LA for a minute.
Worked together, and they were a couple for a long
time.
time.
Yeah. Interesting. Well, let's hear another thing, because maybe we can hear something with Bobbe. Yeah. Let's see where I put that. And yeah, you had a few different things with Bobbe here listed, I think.
Why don't we wait for the one with Mark until we start talking about Mark? But if you could play maybe Goodbye.
Yeah.
And this is a pretty interesting recording. There was a man here, Tom Stern was his name, and he played banjo, but he got some kind of trust fund every year. He got a bunch of money, and he did a recording every year, and he just hired whatever musicians he liked and said, do whatever you want. So for this one, I decided I would do something with Bobbe. I'd always wanted to write for a bunch of trombones, so we had 6 trombones, and I played piano, and there was bass and drums, and also I had started working with Cleo Laine and John Dankworth at the time, and I got John to play clarinet on it. So you'll hear John on clarinet and 6 trombones and Bobbe in rhythm section.
You know what? This particular link says this file can't be previewed.
Oh. Well, okay.
I'd like to see it.
So I guess you can't play it. I mean, I don't know. Can I send it to you again?
Maybe. Let me see if I can also download it and it makes a difference. But, yeah. It would be nice to see it. I'd love to see it.
Bad after I talked about it.
I know, man. Yeah, when I downloaded it, it's a text. It's text.
Oh, you know, I've got a zip file for it. Would that be good?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Okay, let's see if this works.
Now, you could put it in the Zoom chat, or you can email it to me, whichever you prefer.
Yeah, I'll just... Oh, well, let's see. Oh, maybe I can put it in the chat, yeah. Let's see here. Okay, now it's in the chat.
Okay, I got it. I got it. Let's see. Yeah. Goodbye. Oh, says it can't be previewed.
It might not work. I don't know.
I don't know why. It says just see if your file extension is correct. So let me see if I can extract it. Maybe that's the thing. I'm extracting it. File extracted. I got it. And then let's see if this works. No.
Okay, I put it in the chat, the final version, but it takes a little while to download. It's downloading.
Oh, okay. All right.
Yeah, this guy
yes.
did kind of neat things. He playing banjo. I remember once we recorded Monk's Mysterioso with him playing banjo.
Oh, that must have been fun.
Yeah.
I think I got that. Let's see if I downloaded that. You know, I'm clicking it to open. It's downloading as a text edit. It also has the word partial.
Well, that's because the intro is cut off.
Yeah, so even the one that you sent me to download, I can't open it. It's like it's a text edit.
Okay, forget it. Too bad.
That's too bad, because now I really want to see it. You know, if you can open it, you could share it on yours.
I can open it, yeah, because I'm... Wait a minute. Go back to the beginning.
And you just have to share your screen.
Right.
Ladies and gentlemen, this is high tech.
Share screen. And... Oh, where is it? Pages. But now I don't see it on my screen. Why not? Is this it?
That is your screen.
Can you hear that?
Now, when I can hear it, but when you clicked share screen, did you share the sound as well?
Oh, that's right. I got to do that.
Yeah.
Where is that?
Well, you have to get I would get out of the share screen, then go back in, and then select share the sound.
Oh, I hope I don't lose you here. Wait a minute. We're still here.
Yeah. When you hit share screen, there should be a little box you can check on the bottom left that says share sound.
Right, share sound. But now I want to go back to the beginning of the tune.
And are you opening it in iTunes or Dropbox?
Dropbox.
So just find Dropbox again.
Well,
but you're not sharing the screen yet.
Wait a minute. Well, it's playing here, but I want. Oh, here we go. Here we go. I think.
Yes, yes.
Okay, here we are at the beginning.
Okay.
I'll never forget you. I'll never forget you. I'll never forget how we promised one day to love one another forever that way. We said we'd never say goodbye. But that was long ago. Now you've forgotten, I know. Used to wonder why. Let's say farewell with a sigh. Let love die. But we'll go on living our own way of living. So you take the high road and I'll take the low. It's time that we parted. It's much better so. But kiss me as you go. Goodbye. So you take the high road and I'll take the low. It's time that we parted. It's much better so. but kiss me as you go.
Wow. Great.
Yeah, so that was
Wonderful song.
Oh, it's a great song. It was Benny Goodman's theme song for a while, written by Gordon Jenkins, and yeah, I always wanted to write for a bunch of trombones, and
That sounded so good. And so the bass horns that you heard, those were trombones? Those were not bass clarinet?
Trombones, 6 trombones. Oh, a bass trombone was one of them, yeah.
Yeah. That was a wonderful arrangement, and Bobby sounds beautiful singing it.
It never was released. I don't know why the guy he never put it on a recording. And I liked it so much, and I got in touch with him. I said, how about if I just buy that track from you? He said, well, you could do that, but he said it would cost you about $5,000 for that one track. He said, I put a lot of money into that, hiring John Dankworth and, all the time and the musicians. And I thought, no, I'm not going to do that. Maybe I'll record it myself sometime.
Yeah. Yeah, that's really nice. Hey, Mike Hatfield.
All right.
Mike Hatfield said, if you're reading a Larry Dunlap transcription, you don't have to check it because it's correct. Do you know?
I've done a lot of that.
Actually, where is that? Is that up here somewhere? I have to show you something. I don't know where it is on my computer, so hold on one second. Hold on, everybody. I'm going to get a picture that I think is right outside my room. And let's see. Am I losing my mind, or is it here? Gosh, where did I see that picture recently? I wanted to show you the picture of me and Mike Hatfield.
Oh yeah, that's right. You guys know each other from way back, huh?
Oh yeah, I don't know if I can actually. Let me see if I can take this down. Yeah, I can. Okay, let's see if I can show you this.
Wow.
See. It's where my finger is. Let's see. Okay. You see this picture right here?
Yeah. All right.
That picture, the third guy there, right there, that's Mike Hatfield.
Yeah.
That's me with my hairy armpits.
Uh-huh. Yeah.
Okay, and now let me get back online here. Because of course today
Michael told me
I put
a story
everything
that
through
I
my
think I better not
headphones,
repeat.
so I can't hear anybody.
Oh.
So,
Michael told me a story that I better not repeat.
oh,
I think I related it to you one time.
I think you did, yeah, Mike. I mean that was a period of time when I was just so spontaneous, and I just did anything that I that I thought of.
Yeah.
And that was Mike was so cute. And he played
he's a good
vibes.
guy, I see him quite a bit, yeah.
Yeah. He played vibes in that band.
Right.
And I remember him complaining, I wonder if the vibes are really powerful enough for this music, because we were playing funk, and it was the 70s, so we were playing everything, and it was funky. It was great. He was always a great musician.
Dean Parks, Dean Parks, yeah?
Yeah.
He just did a really neat video of what's the tune? It's a Herbie Hancock tune. I can't think. Da 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 da.
Cantaloupe Island?
Cantaloupe Island.
Yeah.
He did a really neat recording of that. That Michael plays vibes on, and you only see his hands and the vibes. You don't see his face or anything. But Dean plays so many instruments. He plays guitar. He plays alto sax, tenor sax, a whole bunch of flutes.
Wow.
And another friend of mine plays bass and percussion on it. It's a really neat video. But
Wow.
I think it's not really for public distribution yet, but I've seen it. It's
Yeah. Yeah, that's cool. So let's see, where were we? Where we were talking about? Oh yeah, and we were going to kind of move into talking about Cleo and Mark Murphy.
Yeah. So in the late 80s, Cleo and John, their son and his wife, lived in Sonoma,
Yeah.
the wine country.
Uh-huh.
And they decided that they'd already done one or two tours in the United States where they brought musicians over from England to work with them, but it was pretty cost prohibitive. So they decided they would get musicians here in the States to work with them. And because they were living some of the time at their son's place, they decided, well, we'll find some musicians in the Bay Area. And so
Is that how you and Larry Coons met?
Actually, yeah, through Cleo, yeah.
Yeah,
She worked
okay.
with her for a while.
Yeah, yeah,
And we did a few gigs together with Cleo.
yeah.
But this was some years before he had worked with them. But they contacted the guy who contracted all the musicians for the Circle Star Theater, which was a big venue in the Bay Area.
Yeah.
They had played there. And he gave them names of some musicians. And I was one of them. So we got together the first time. There were two keyboard players.
Yeah.
And bass and drums. And John Dankworth playing woodwinds and another woodwind player.
Uh-huh.
Leo. And the other keyboard player said, I can't play this music, and he left the group. So it was left to me. It was John Dankworth writes very detailed arrangements. Sometimes he writes out every note he wants you to play. You know? Sometimes it's freer, but sometimes it's like that. And you got to get used to the way Brits write. I mean, chord names go under the line instead of over the line, and
boy,
things like that. But so I started working with them, and I was with them most of the time for about 30 years.
Wow.
And I did leave for a little time in the 90s, and that's when Larry Kuntz started playing with them. They decided, well, we can do it with guitar instead of piano. Dankworth played some piano too.
Yeah.
And then when I said, oh, I'd like to come back, then Larry and I overlapped a little bit, and then he left, and I continued with him for a while.
Cool. How was it? I mean, 30 years, you must have enjoyed it.
I liked the music. I liked them very, very much. You know,
Yeah.
Really, really sweet, funny people, and from totally different backgrounds. John was like upper class British, right?
Yeah.
Leo was like from the slums practically, right? But when you saw her in person or in an interview situation or something, she was very classy, right? But
Yeah.
when we're just hanging out, she loved a dirty joke, and she would, she was just a dear person. I talk to her about once a month. She's still alive. She's 93, and
Wow.
living in the UK. But yeah, I loved working with them, and got some great opportunities. Went with them to Australia about 3 times, and New Zealand, and never to Europe. They always used their British musicians in Europe.
Yeah.
Did some recordings with them.
That was her version of All Blues was my first listen to All Blues. And
I don't know if I've ever heard that. Yeah.
Oh, yeah, it's beautiful. It's really beautiful. That's where I learned it.
One of my favorite recordings that she did is all Sondheim music. I didn't play on it, but it's just exquisite. And Jonathan Tunick, who did all the orchestrations of Sondheim's music, wrote the arrangements for the recording. And a funny story, they did the recording, and then Cleo wanted to do the arrangements in concerts. And Jonathan Tunick said, oh no, he said, you bought the arrangements for the recordings. He said, you're going to have to pay me again if you want to use them in concert.
Oh, God.
So they never did them in concert.
Interesting. She had such an unusual sound,
Yeah.
Singers don't really talk about her very much. They talk mostly about Ella and Carmen and Sarah, but I think Cleo is right up there, man.
A great singer. Yeah, she, much better known in England and Europe than here.
Yeah.
Even though now she's pretty well known here. But I mention her name to a lot of people. They've never heard of her.
Yeah, interesting. Michael's mentioning that you ripped up all blues with Kenny Washington.
Yeah, that's right. We did that. We recorded a concert, kind of a concert, no audience, but about a month ago or 3 weeks ago.
Yeah.
And it was broadcast for the first time Saturday night, this last Saturday.
Oh.
And it's archived. It's on, there's an organization called Music in Place.
Yeah.
And they do lots of concerts. In fact, some of the videos I sent you are from that.
Oh.
But we did, 50, 60 minutes of music, and that was one of the songs we did.
I'm going to go hear that. I'm a big Kenny Washington fan, of course.
Yeah, you have to go to Music in Place website.
Okay, cool. That's great. Kenny, I had Kenny on the show a while back. He's so
I watched
funny.
some of that last night.
Oh, really?
What a sweet guy,
He is a sweetheart.
And he just doesn't have the drive to, get really big, but he could.
Yeah, he could, despite himself.
I mean, he was up for the Grammy, but he lost it. Yeah.
But I mean, that probably propelled him up a little bit.
Yeah,
I mean, I think a lot of
another recording this year with him.
I think a lot of people like you and I know him, and there's a lot of people like you and I throughout the planet. Now, is he a household word? No, but I think he has a good reputation.
Sure, among musicians for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think I've worked with 3 of the top vocal improvisers: Nancy King, and Kenny, and Mark Murphy.
Yeah, right there, man. You're royalty. That just goes. Yep, Larry Dunlap, man, he's royalty. You actually included in your list something with Mark. I'd like to see that. Let's see. Let me go.
I might have sent Crystal Silence, which was a YouTube thing, or I know I sent Invitation, which is Mark and Bobbe together.
And now that was just like was that a YouTube thing, or was that what was that? That was,
I don't know. It's from our own recording. I just had it.
So it's a record,
Yeah.
right? So sound, I could play that. And let's see, should I play that, or should I go to the Dropbox where you did Crystal Silence?
Well, I don't know. If we have time, maybe Crystal Silence now, and then the other one a little later.
Okay, cool. I'm gonna put Crystal Silence in.
This is wonderful. Mark invited me to write all the arrangements for this recording, September Ballads, and
oh wait, did you play on September Ballads?
that's me, yeah. And I arranged it
one
all,
of-
and
that's-
then when we finished it, they said, "Well, you're really the producer on this too." I said, "Well, yeah, okay." So they have me down as producer and arranger and played piano, and it was with, we had guests. We had Larry Coryell, we had Oscar Castroneves, and Art Farmer, and Donald Bailey playing harmonica. It's really
really
really neat. This one has both Larry Coryell and Oscar Castroneves. It was great.
I see it. Let's see. So this is YouTube, but it's probably not. I mean, it's just the cover, I'm guessing. Yeah.
Yeah.
Let me get my shit together
What do
here.
you mean by that? Just a cover of the recording?
No, I mean what we're looking at. We're just looking at. I mean, it's not like a live video.
No, it's not.
Right. Now this, I have to say, first of all, what a band.
Yeah.
God. What a band. And Donald Bailey. Yeah, I kept forgetting his name because sometimes I've talked about Dave Mackay a lot. And when I first saw Dave Mackay, he had a trio with Andy Simpkins and Donald Bailey.
All right.
And I'll tell you, I literally fell off of my chair listening. I was so, especially Andy. Andy was so, like, an outstanding player,
I met him. I met Andy years ago when I was still up in Oregon. I played for a convention of all the West Coast all the West Coast governors of states. Ronald Reagan was governor of California at that
Oh, really?
And he was there. Who was he playing with? Maybe he was playing with George Shearing at the time.
Uh-huh.
For sure. But yeah, he was there, and we hung out a little bit. Great guy.
Great guy, great player. Okay, here's probably going to be one of my favorites, I'm sure.
Oh, where did she go? The crystal silence cries in my dreams. I see her still through the crystal silence of the night. Away from life now, all alone, I can reflect. I let her slip away from a game she might have played if she stayed, if she had stayed. I know these wondrous games that we would have played. As long as time exists, I shall recall the girl I knew so well. Time exists, I shall recall the girl I knew so well. One day I know, in time our paths will meet, and then we'll feel the joy we both have known, that I love and call my own.
Wow. Wow, that was some arrangement, man.
Yeah.
And I see Vince Ladiano's on it too.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, damn. That was an amazing arrangement. What time signature was that in? Was that changing?
It changed a lot.
Yeah.
Part of it was in 7, I think. Part of it in 3, and yeah.
And the bridge, you treated the bridge differently, which I thought was genius because
I think
the bridge is
was in 5. Yeah.
Yeah, the bridge really is such a different kind of part of the composition. It's really nice.
Yeah. Mark had a lot of input on most of the arrangements for that recording. I mean, I'd get together with him and he'd play stuff for me on the piano. I think on that one, the time thing was all my idea, to keep changing the music.
Fantastic. That's really an amazing arrangement. And, talking about groove, with my student today, when I hear Mark, I mean, talk about, the subtleties of groove. You really have to know a lot to appreciate what he's doing, because he's so not obvious, as regarding like a, connected to that kind of a groove.
He doesn't sing on the beat too much.
No, but he's so connected,
yeah.
That was
always
really
loved
beautiful.
Working with him. It was a very liberating, free kind of thing to work with him. I never knew quite what he was going to do, and he liked me to take lots of chances with what I played. A couple of people, another person like that I've had the pleasure of working with a few times is Sheila Jordan.
Oh, yeah.
She really likes to be. 3 people, Mark, Sheila, and Cleo, I really feel like I'm becoming a part of history when I work with them. Their backgrounds are so full.
Yeah. Sheila was here in LA about 2 years ago, and we have a really nice location. Sometime you'll have to play it. It's at a friend of mine's house. He was a musician. I mean, how I met him was years ago. We did casuals together, and then he got into an industrial company that he owned, and he made a lot of money, and he bought kind of a house in a really medium financial place. It was right outside of LA, and then over the years it got regentrified, and anyway, and then because he had a lot of money, he started adding stuff onto the house, and so now he has this music performance space that he's had for a long time, but he has a 9-foot German incredible piano in there. He has all the instruments, PA, it's great, lights. 70 people can sit there and listen. He has a little bar there. He's a bachelor too, and he calls it the G spot because his name is Goldman. Well, that's not the only reason, but And anyway,
I love
so
doing house concerts.
this is a really good place. A lot of great people have been there, and I've facilitated a lot of them. But Sheila Jordan was there with the bass player she works with.
Harvey Schwartz?
No.
The
guy she's worked with more recently, a long time.
Cameron something.
Yes, Cameron Brown.
Yeah.
And so the audience was enthralled, and by the end they were crying. And I mean, it was just, I think what was so great about her, besides her musicality, is she carries with her, without actually specifically saying it, although she does talk about history a lot, but she carries with her the knowledge that she is one of the last ones to carry history forth, from that period.
Yeah.
And I think people just get that. It's an honor, and it's kind of overwhelming, because it really reaches your heart,
Yeah.
Yeah. Really
her,
beautiful.
Her and Mark and Cleo, all of them, they've had such wide experiences.
Yeah, yeah. And Nancy too. Did you record with Nancy?
Not.
Nothing that
I
came
have
out. Or,
things that we were recorded on gigs, but
yeah,
nothing ever released. No.
yeah. One of my favorite Desert Island records is her with the Metropole. And,
Oh yeah.
I mean, and also, I don't know if you ever heard, I might have to play it for you if you haven't, or send it to you. Tim Weston had made a few recordings, produced a few orchestral recordings, and one was a tribute to Rodgers and Hammerstein. And he had a different arranger on each song and a different artist, mostly singers. And one of my favorites was the arranger Nan Schwartz arranging for Mark Murphy.
Right.
And it was This Nearly Was Mine, which is a perfect song for Mark Murphy, right?
Yeah.
You can imagine. And then the other amazing song was supposed to be with a rock singer who just couldn't cut it, so they got Nancy at the last minute, and it was Van Dyke Parks. He arranged it, which was a really incredibly unusual arrangement, and it was a song I wasn't at all familiar with, called "Everybody's Got a Home But Me." Everybody's got a home but me. You know, kind of one of those.
I think I've heard it, but yeah.
And Nancy sang the crap out of it, and the arrangement was incredible. It was beautiful. You would really like that. I'll send you a Dropbox links to it.
Yeah, I would love to hear that. She did a recording. Randy Porter, Randy?
Yeah.
Well, they did a recording together.
Recently.
Cole Porter songs.
Was that the one in the last 5 years or something?
Yeah. And she doesn't sing on everything, but it's great what she sings.
I'm just writing myself a note. Nancy, yeah.
So the way I hooked up with Mark is so I told you Bobbe used to be the secretary for the Kingston Trio.
Yeah.
That's one of the few straight jobs she's ever had, right? But she did that for a while, and she said mostly she was just by herself, and they had her taking care of their little sports cars, and she could drive them around whenever she wanted to, right? Well, the guy who was managing them also was managing Mark at the time.
Oh.
In the mid-'60s. And one day this woman comes into the office, and Bobby's the only one there, and she says, "You guys aren't doing enough for Mark. You have to book him more." She was really, kind of upset, and they became really good friends, and they would meet for lunch and stuff, and so this woman, had Bobbe come over to her house when Mark was around, and she got to know him that way, and then they always remained friends, and.
Who is this woman? Who was the woman?
Oh, I can't remember her name. Dennis something.
Was she just a fan of Mark's?
She was just a good friend of Mark's, yeah. And Bobbe said in those days, Mark would go on the road with everything he owned in a shoebox. Everything he took with him would fit in a shoebox. But she would go over and get to know him that way, and, she became good friends with Mark. And then Mark moved here to the Bay Area, I don't know, in the 80s or something, and he was living for quite a while in a Winnebago, and then later on he got an apartment with his partner, and Smith Dobson was playing piano with him for quite a while, and Bobbe kept saying, "You should have Larry playing with you," and so eventually that happened, and then I worked with him quite a bit, went to Japan with him and Indonesia, and although there weren't very many, he pretty much picked up musicians wherever he went, wherever he was performing. But one funny story, one time he had a gig in Salt Lake City, and he asked me to do it because he didn't know any piano player there. So he flew in a day early, I think, and did some radio interviews or something, and then I flew in the day of the concert. And this young woman met me at the airport. She was the girlfriend of the promoter for the concert. And she said, "Well, we got some time, you want to just go hang out in the desert or something." So we did. for a little while, and then we went to the theater, and everybody was all nervous and what's going on? Well, the promoter, her boyfriend, had taken all the money that had come in so far and disappeared, and so there was no concert, and Mark and I just went out to dinner and got a bottle of something, and
Oh my God.
and I flew back the next day. And, Mark didn't have a lot of money. He ended up paying me, 3 or 4 months later. But
Wow.
that was a funny gig.
What a story. What a road story, man.
Yeah.
That's really something. Oh my
Yeah.
God. Let's see. Oh, Neil Rosengarten says hi.
Oh yeah, his brother I used to work with a lot, Mark Rosengarten.
Cool. Yeah. And
I'm not seeing these chats. Huh? I'm not seeing.
no, you have to be on Facebook. But I mean, you could bring up Facebook on something else and see it.
that's
But
okay.
yeah. Mike Hatfield said when his brother Brad first heard Kenny, his comment was, "Why isn't he famous?"
Yep.
Yeah. Do you know
Yeah,
Brad?
Bobby says he's about the only male singer she can listen to these days.
Bobby, I'm with you, man. Girl. I'm really picky when it comes to singers.
Yeah, she is too.
Yeah, he's really good. And of course, Andy Bay is still alive, so I could
Oh,
listen to
right.
Andy Bay.
Yeah, I heard him just one time, I don't know, 15 years ago or so, when the Plush Room was still happening in San Francisco, and he came there. It was quite an experience.
I think he's actually underknown too, except for, people like us know him, but I mean, he should be a household word, I mean, he's such an incredible singer. I remember a few years back, I knew his stuff, but I didn't realize, I just never came across it, that he and his sisters worked together. And I was so blown away with all of them. I mean,
know, they did great things together, yeah.
wow. And the girls, what was so cool was the girls were singing along with him how he sang. They didn't make these three-part harmony things like all singing together, which is kind of unorganic, really, when you think about it. You have these singers and you write this thing and then they all sing what you write. It was led by his style of singing, and then they came into it. So I thought that was really a cool thing. I hadn't really heard that kind of way of doing it, of singing together.
Yeah.
It's really great.
Well, maybe the sisters had been kind of singing in the same style because they all grew up together.
Well, that too.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's a really slamming group to listen to.
Yeah.
I really enjoy
I haven't
listening
listened to them for a long time, but when I first found out about him, I listened a bunch to the vocal group.
Yeah. What are you doing these days?
Well, I'm doing my broadcast twice a week.
Yes, can we repeat that? And I'm going to actually type that into the comments section.
Yeah, I'm doing, I call it Uncle Larry in the Cave, because my room is kind of like a cave, and it's very chaotic in here. But I do it, most of the time, I do it Sundays and Wednesdays at 7.
Not Mondays, Sundays, sorry.
Sundays and Wednesdays at 7.
Sundays and Wednesdays at 7 p.m.
On Facebook, yeah.
Pacific time,
Yeah.
on Facebook.
And it's an hour or a little more. And I play music, and I talk like this too. It's very informal. I just kind of, one song will let me think about something, and I'll talk about it. The last time Sunday I did all spring songs. Yeah, that was the last one. Yeah. I kind of try to find a theme, and every time I do an Yvonne Lynn song.
Oh, cool.
I love his music, and he's a good friend, and I play I play one of his songs every show.
That's cool. You know, I have a friend down here, Greg Karukas, who's kind of more of a kind of what's the style? You know, it's jazz, but it's kind of more commercial jazz. You know, and that's his style. But he's played a lot of Brazilian music with some people, probably I think with Dori Caymmi a lot. And anyway, so he talks about Ivan's songs and Dory's songs and knows a lot of them.
Yeah, I love Ivan's music. Bobbe was the first person to record Velas Isadas. You know that song?
Yeah.
She was the first American, North American to record that song.
Wow.
And yeah, we got to know him. We went to a gig that he had at Yoshi's, and after the gig, Bobbe said, "Well, let's go back and meet him." I said, "Oh no, we shouldn't go meet him." She said, "Yeah, we should go meet him." So we went backstage, and we went out to lunch together the next day, and we've become good friends. Every time he's around, we hang out.
Wow, that's nice. So had you recorded that song before that show or no?
Yeah, before we knew him. Yeah.
Wow.
And what else am I doing now? I have a very interesting project. I'm arranging things for different people.
Yeah.
I'm always working on arrangements. I'm in the middle of writing arrangements for a singer. It's kind of been delayed because of COVID, but a singer I've done some recording with before named Audrey Martin. She's not well known. She's a singer in Berkeley. But I enjoy working with her. And there's a singer, Sandra Marlowe, who I've done a couple recordings with. And I have a very interesting thing. A good friend of mine was Earl Zindars. And his best friend was Bill Evans. And Bill recorded a lot of tunes that Earl had written. Elsa, How My Heart Sings, some other songs.
Yeah.
Bill had written, and Bill was the best man at Earl's wedding.
Oh, wow.
Well, Earl wrote a concerto for a jazz trio with a full symphony orchestra, big major work for Bill to perform, and Bill died before he ever performed it. It's never been performed. Oh. And I know Earl's widow. Earl died 10, 12 years ago.
Yeah.
And I called her one time and I said, "Do you have that concerto that Earl wrote for Bill Evans?" She said, "Yeah." I said, "I'd like to come over and take a look." So I went over and she pulled out this big handwritten score, and she opens it up and there's a photocopy of the whole thing. She said, "You want this?" I said, "Yeah." And so I've got that, and little by little I'm putting it in finale because the parts have never even been extracted from the thing,
Wow.
And it would be great to perform it sometime. It's very contemporary, classical kind of thing, but it's got a lot of improvisation in it too.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's exciting. That's a great project. Wow.
That's a neat thing. Yeah.
Amazing. And the arrangements for the singers, like for instance, that arrangement that of Crystal Silence that we just played for Mark Murphy, that was a pretty deep arrangement. Do you find that you are making those kind of arrangements, or a little less deep, or do you kind of adjust?
Depends on the singer.
Yeah.
Depends on the singer. If I think I can get away with something like that and they can do it, then we'll do it. But often I'll work on an arrangement for a singer and they'll say, "Oh, I don't know if I like it." I say, "Well, let me make a demo and you live with it for a while." And then almost always they'll say, after a while, they say, "Yeah, I love this. This is great. This is really different," and we'll record it like that. But with this singer, we've done several Laura Nyro songs and Leonard Cohen songs, and
interesting.
Joni Mitchell, things like that.
Yeah, that's more and more coming in. I was just telling somebody that the other day because the record that I have, I've already recorded it with the musicians, and now I'm just kind of fixing up the vocals so I've been releasing singles from it, but I want to, I'd like to in a few months release the whole thing. But so I did songs from that, like over period from the 60s to the 90s, pretty much, And yeah, a lot of people are doing that. I mean, they've been doing that for what, I don't know. What wouldn't you say, about 10 years or something? That's been kind of sneaking in more and more.
Yeah, that Billy Childs thing where he did all Laura Nyro.
Ah,
that was pretty amazing.
oh my God, that was just gorgeous, and I've seen it performed twice at the Blue Whale, and that was open in L.A.
Yeah, they did it up here in San Francisco. I went to see it, and Peter Sprague was playing guitar. Who I've gotten to know him a little bit now.
He's wonderful.
He does great streaming things.
He does. I love them. They're so musical. I think he had some problem with his, with his internet service recently, and so they're kind of working through that. I mean, but he has it all together. He's really gotten a lot of it together. He's such a nice guy, and he's so musical, and
yeah.
Oh man.
And kind of, another person I know you've had on your show is Sina E.
Yeah.
And actually, I know he's worked with her, but actually it came from Larry Kuntz. But
yeah,
he recommended me to her, and I've done a few gigs with her up here.
Oh, how lovely! Yeah, that's nice. She would be a good person for you to arrange for.
Yeah, she writes great songs too.
She does. She is really good, and I've seen her over a number of years. When she first came to L.A., she came and sat in on this funny little gig that I had through Roger Newman. Did you know Roger Newman? He was a sax player and an arranger down here. He died like 2 years ago. But anyway, they were friends. Actually, Larry and Roger met Sina in Japan on a on a gig with, it was kind of a, compilation gig, but the drummer was Frankie Cap. And God bless Frankie Cap. But, he could be a real turkey, and he really was a turkey. He tried to be a turkey to her, and she actually wouldn't allow it, even though she was probably on the young side. And anyway, that's how Larry and Roger met her. But, so I've seen her over a number of years when she would come to LA. And boy, the last time I saw her here, she was with Larry and Josh Nelson. Yeah. And it was, like I said, like Bobbe probably, I'm not critical of singers, but I'm opinionated about singers. So for me to totally go gaga over a singer, just even in my mind, it's like a lot, And she had everything. Yeah. She was totally musical. Her voice sounded great. Her range, her approach, her humility, the way she phrased, and I mean everything was great, just great. Did you know that she was an alto player first?
No, I didn't know.
Yeah, and then she didn't sing till later, much later, actually. Interesting. Hi, Robin. Let's see. Let's do another song. Let's see. You have. I really love the what I heard, the Amandio song.
Oh yeah, that's nice. I'll tell you a little bit about him. Amandio, I met him, I guess, shortly after I first came to the Bay Area in the 70s. He lived in North Beach, and Keystone Corner was the big jazz club, and it was about 2 blocks from his place, and he was there a lot. He was a big jazz fan, and I was there a lot, and we met and we got to know each other. And after a few years, he said, well, would you record some of my music? And I said, yeah, sure. So he's a composer. He's older now, and he's had a stroke. No, not has he had a stroke? Yeah, I think he has. But anyway, he doesn't play anymore, but he played guitar and sang. And he was a real big deal in the Cape Verde Islands, where he's from, when he was young. And in like the late 50s, one of his good friends was Cesaria Evora. You know who she is?
No, I
Cesaria
don't.
Evora? Anyway, she's really big in Europe. And her biggest song is a song he wrote in about 1959
Oh.
called Saudade.
Oh.
And he said, well, let me play some of my songs for you. So he played some songs, just playing guitar and singing, and I taped them and wrote them down. And he said, just do whatever you want with these songs. So I arranged them. I have a lot of fun arranging his songs because they're beautiful, simple little, almost folksy melodies, but really nice and sounding a little bit Brazilian, right?
Yeah, yeah.
So I've done 12 recordings of his music, I think.
Wow.
And they're all different. A couple of them are solo piano. The first one was a trio. I've done a quintet. I don't know, different things. But the thing you're going to play is a tune he wrote for Bobbe, my wife. And we did it with just piano, guitar, and bass. Steve Urquiaga, a wonderful guitar player, played on it. And John Shiflett, who was a great bass player who passed away a couple of years ago.
Uh-huh. Okay. Oh, I'm sorry. I thought you were going to say more.
No, it's got lots of... He's talking to me about doing another recording right now. We talked last night. And he... there's a well-known, in Europe anyway, well-known Cape Verdean singer, Nancy Vieira is her name.
Uh-huh.
And he called her on the phone and said, would you do a recording of my music? And she said, yeah, so we're figuring out how to do that. He said, well, shall we do it here or shall we go to Portugal? I said, well, I'd like to go to Portugal, but I don't know, whatever you think. Ivan Lins lives in Lisbon now, so I would love to go over there.
Oh. Wow. That's pretty cool, yeah. Nothing wrong with traveling and doing something great.
This has some nice pictures.
That is gorgeous, and I just wanted to really soak in this guy's name. This is a Q, Urquiaga.
Yeah, he's a great guitar player.
Gorgeous.
He's played with quite a few people over the years. I don't know who all, but yeah, he teaches a lot at the Jazz Conservatory in Berkeley.
Oh yeah, and boy, John Shiflett sounds great too.
Yeah, it's spelled wrong. There's an L before the E. John Shiflett.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
All right. Well, that was really beautiful. Wow. Just gorgeous.
You know, I'm not a real technical player, you know.
Yeah.
I think of myself more as, you know, nice harmonies and melodic, and I'm really more of an arranger than a pianist. I consider myself. You know. I have my own voice in arrangement.
Yeah, but you, I think that I think you sound wonderful. Your piano playing is beautiful, and it speaks out. You know, it really has a voice, and I mean, maybe you're talking about that you're not flashy or that kind of thing.
Yeah, I'm not flashy.
Yeah.
Not a whole lot of notes real fast. You know.
Yeah, yeah. I think of myself like that too.
Yeah.
I think, well, you know, I know what I'm not. You know, I know the area that I feel I don't excel in or, you know, really stand out in. And I know what I do well, which is usually more of the softer, more connecting kind of, you know, musical things like
too,
that.
Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, your playing is really beautiful.
Thank you. Yeah, I watched a master class with Alan Pasqua.
Yeah.
And he talks about Madame Charloff, is that her name in Boston?
Yeah, Madame Charloff, yeah.
The famous teacher, and
Yeah.
how he wanted to study with her. So he went to see her, and he did have a couple of sort of lessons with her, but he said that one thing he remembered that she would say was, the piano is a wind instrument. And he thought, what does that mean, you know? And after a while he thought, well, it means you should be leaving spaces for taking breaths and not just playing a constant barrage of notes, you know. And I like playing that way. I like to try to be melodic. You know.
Yeah. Carl Schroeder, did you know him at all?
No, but I know the name. Yeah.
Well, Carl Schroeder, oh gosh, my blinds. I don't know what's with my blinds lately. Maybe the sun has shifted or something. But anyway, Carl Schroeder, he played with for Sarah for 9 years. And he was the head of the music department at Musicians Institute down here for a long time. I don't know what has happened to him. I've looked for him, and I don't know where he is or if he's still around. But he studied with Madame Charloff, and he said for about a year, when he would go, sorry, I'm trying to get this very strange light off my face.
Yeah, you got that light.
He said for a year she wanted him to play one note. He was like working on his execution of the touch, and I think he just finally just kind of lost it, you know. He was like, "Oh my God, I can't take it anymore," you know.
Yeah.
Hold on. Trying to get this a little bit. Oh, that should do it. Yeah, but of course, and she was Serge Charloff's mother.
Right.
Yeah. So, yeah, she was definitely a legend in Boston.
Yeah.
Yeah, interesting. What do you teach?
I do. I have. I don't have a lot of students. I have 6 students now. I'm teaching online. You know.
Piano or arranging,
piano.
or
yeah, just piano.
Have you ever taught arranging?
I've done some workshops, but never on a steady basis. Two of my piano students are very accomplished classical players, and they want to learn jazz, and they're doing good. They're going in very different directions. One of them is, composing a lot of music and figuring out how to play standards and things. Not so strong but in improvising. The other one is really, it's remarkable, his progress. And he's, ever so often he'll say something to me like, well, I never heard of Herbie Hancock before, we started having lessons. I say, oh, wow. So, all these things I'm introducing him to. And the other day he said, I told him to watch some Brazilian videos of something, and he said, I discovered this singer, Elise Regina. He said, she's really good. I said, yeah, she's really good. Yeah.
That's really fun, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah. I had a new student yesterday. You would never think in a million years, looking at the guy, that he would be interested in jazz or anything. Really nice guy. Totally new to jazz. And he's about, I think he said he's about 40. And he just all of a sudden got bored with rock and pop and heard jazz and kind of just flipped. And he found me online, he came over, and he has, he doesn't even get it. He has an incredible ear. I taught him so much in one lesson because he just kept getting it, and I played a 2-5-1. He came right in with the right, and he got what a 2-5-1 was. I mean, it was just, and then he kept hearing the 2-5-1 and in songs. Yeah. I mean, he was amazing. I'm really excited to turn him on to a lot of stuff. Yeah, I was just wondering if you had taught arranging too. I mean, did you say? Well, you said you started arranging when you were really young. What, was there a moment in time when you felt like you probably already said this? I have a feeling, but that your arranging really kind of stood on its own and it got a life of its own. It's like, okay, I'm rolling with it.
Well, a lot of it, I would cite that Mark Murphy recording, When I did that, they gave me pretty much free rein. Mark had some ideas, but I'd already had quite a bit of experience, doing arrangements for big bands and small groups and writing songs. And
yeah.
I don't do as much composing now as I would like to. I should. I've got time, I should be practicing a lot. No.
Well, it's such a weird time, it's just, yeah, I mean, gosh, we could talk about this for a long time, but it's such an odd time especially for musicians such as us who were really busy before doing whatever we were doing, and then all of a sudden, you don't have to go out to gigs. I mean, that's a big part of it. You're not traveling. And you're still the same person. You still have the same musical desires, but now you have time to listen to that record you always wanted to listen to. Watch a video of Larry Dunlap playing with Country Joe. Yeah. You have time really to kind of peruse and do stuff. I played this when I went to Berkeley. Uh-huh. There was no vocal at Berkeley at the time, even though I was already a singer, but I also played flute. And the last time I took a lesson was in college. And I still have an embouchure and I still know the notes and everything. And when I picked it up over the years, it was like, people said, oh, you should play the flute. And I was like, yeah, I guess I should, So recently I took a flute lesson with a great flutist, Lori Bell, who lives in San Diego. And I just couldn't believe it. It was like, oh, why didn't I think of taking a lesson in all these years, And so it's really fun, and I'm doing that. And I'm even though I want to study Portuguese a little bit more, or maybe Italian, I'm forcing myself to learn Spanish because, living here is so Spanish would be good. So I'm studying that. I'm also started studying GarageBand, and of course, then there's all the little personal things, like, family trees and photographs, and going through your 6,000 emails that you saved, to delete some.
Yeah, right. Well, I got to do that. I've got a lot of emails on you.
Oh, I don't know about you, but I like to save things. Where else am I going to save them? I do make lists, but even though I'm curious and I want to see these things, I find that I don't. It's more about in the moment, and I don't know.
I have books that I got when I was in college. I still mean to read something, but how many books can I read in the rest of my life?
Do you know what I read this year? Well, first of all, I do not recommend this book right now, 1984.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, don't read it right now. It's not it's not good to stimulate your mind that way. So, but what did I do? I read Animal Farm after that because it was so much smaller, and I thought, I didn't know the history. I didn't know that Animal Farm came first in his writing, but so I just finished Animal Farm, and I have to say, I didn't realize the history behind it, and I was really annoyed reading it, and I just wanted to get through the book. It's very small, and it just annoyed me, the whole subject matter. And then I read at the end, that it was actually a treatise on what he was going through, and it was totally about the communists and the Soviets, and it was a political statement. And after that, he wrote 1984, which just hurts my head thinking about it.
I've read a couple of books recently that I like a lot. One is called the Prague Sonata.
Uh-huh.
And it's fictional, but it's about. I used to live in Prague, so things about Prague interest me, and it talks about a lot of restaurants and views and things that I remember, So
yeah,
I like that. But it's about a sonata, a 3-movement sonata that was in Prague for a while, and then it got split up with 3 different people and a young woman who's a musicologist who's trying to put it all together again. So she moves to Prague for a while, and it turns out it's by a very famous composer, and it's a neat book.
Huh.
Especially if you know anything about Prague, but even just about music, it's really good.
Wow.
And the other book is called The Overstory, which is
I've heard of that.
a fantastic book. It's a big book. It's got a lot of characters, and they all get interwoven through the book. But the main focus of the book is about trees, and how trees are really interesting, how they communicate underground, and how one tree will get sick and another tree will donate its nutrients to that tree, and things like that. It's fascinating.
Wow, that sounds interesting.
Yeah, I like that book a lot.
Yeah.
Got the Pulitzer Prize.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I've tried to read certain books that I've heard about, that I've always heard about. And, I like them, don't like them. Actually, one book I'm reading by my bed is the Michelle Obama book. And I'm actually finding that really interesting. I really did not know about her history. And she really came up, she came up in a poor environment, very poor. And she ended up, her parents sounded really cool, treated them like adults and gave them responsibility and had great discussions with them and supported them. And she ended up going to Princeton and Harvard. And, first working for just a law firm doing kind of ho-hum stuff, and then got into community service right around the time. I think it was right after she met Obama, because he was doing a lot of community service type of things.
Yeah.
And he just supported her in that. So it's an interesting read. I really like reading about that. Generally speaking, I read a lot of spiritual books because that's what I really love.
And I just heard about a book which I want to check out. What's the name of it? It's about George Gershwin. It's like a biography, and you know, the people who have made comments about it said, "Well, I've known Gershwin's music forever, but I didn't really know very much about his life." You know, and it's pretty supposed to be a pretty good book. I'm going to check it out.
Yeah, that's interesting. I
think it's called Rhapsody, maybe Rhapsody.
I saw a video on this year on Ella's early life, and I have to say, even though Ella was my hero, you know, when I was growing up, I really never knew about her life, and it was really interesting, and she really had a rough time.
Do you know James Gavin?
I don't
he's
think
a writer.
so.
He's written several books and articles. He's in New York. I toured with him for a couple of years, off and on. He wrote a book about Lena Horne called Stormy Weather, and we put on a show. You would know these guys, Chris Colangelo, and who was the other guy? I can't remember the drummer's name. Anyway, it was a trio, and Mary Wilson from the Supremes, and James, and we would do performances in theaters where James would read things from his book. He'd talk about Lena Horne. Mary would do about 10 or 12 songs with the trio. That not trying to imitate Lena Horne, but songs that Lena had done. And we'd show videos of her and things. That was a really fun thing. We did that for 2 or 3 years. Not very long ago. But another book, James Gavin wrote a biography of Chet Baker, which is really good. And he wrote one of Peggy Lee. And the Peggy Lee one, boy, I think about her totally differently after reading that book.
Wow.
She was really, I always thought she was, like kind of a sweet, innocent girl. No, not at all. And there's one great story in there with Mark. Actually, she used to bring a lot of men up to her house and have sex with a lot of people. And she brought Mark up there one time, all right, and not realizing that Mark was gay, right? And she brings him to her house, and there's just the two of them, and she says, "Oh, well, you want to go for a swim in the pool?" And he said, "Oh, I don't have a swimming suit or anything." And she said, "Oh, I have swimming suits here, and go find a swimming suit, and I'll meet you out by the pool." And so he puts on a swimming suit. He goes out by the pool, and she walks out in a swimming suit, and she takes his hands and she puts them on her hips, and she says, "Do you like what you see?" And Mark just got so nervous he couldn't say a word. He just turned around and left. And Peggy Lee, who sent it to who? I'm trying to think now. I can't remember if she sent it to him or he sent it to her, but one of them sent a dozen roses to the other with the flowers all cut off, just the stems and all the stickers on the stems. And they said, "You know where you can stick this."
I bet she sent it to him.
I think so. And she had already agreed to write the liner notes for his latest recording at the time. And it had a lot of famous musicians on it. So she wrote the liner notes. She doesn't mention Mark until the last two lines of the whole
Oh my God.
And at the end, she says something like, "Yeah, Mark, he can sing and he blows." Something like that. That was her line about Mark. He was pretty angry, I think.
Oh my God, that's funny.
But Peggy Lee, I think of her very differently after reading that book.
That's funny. Well, it's been 2 hours.
All right.
And I want to thank you so much for sharing this time, with us.
It's been great. Been very fun.
Yeah, it's been really nice to speak with you and hear your arrangements. Now you have a new fan in me, and I'm going to go listen to September Ballads. Really listen to your stuff. Please send my best to Bobbe, and I'll probably get her on here at some point too. As you can imagine, the list is endless. It's just like
had a lot of people on there already.
Yeah, you're number 256.
It reminds me of a song that Shel Silverstein wrote.
Yeah.
Remember Shel Silverstein?
No.
Oh, well, he wrote a lot of funny songs and did cartoons and things. And he wrote a song, I can't remember what exactly it is, but it's something like, Jane Mansfield has gotten around to all the other men. I'm waiting for her to get to me. It's just about time Jane Mansfield gets to me.
I know. You can't take anything personally, in this day and age, because there's so many people around, too.
Oh,
even
yeah.
lovers,
Yeah.
Oh, God. Let's see. I just wanted to tell people, I'm doing Monday through Wednesday live now instead of, I started out 6 days a week live, but now I do 3 days a week, and then I post from my archives the other 4 days, because I figured, hey, why not? It's people can continue watching. So tomorrow I have a singer who sang with Andre Crouch for a long time. He was a studio singer, background singer a lot, and a solo singer. His name is Billy Red Thedford. He was also the nephew of Billy Higgins, and just a really, just gorgeous singer. I remember the first time I met him, he came into my jam session, and my girlfriend said, "You're going to love him." And he got up to sing, and I was like, I said, "Can I sing with you?" It's just gorgeous. So he's on tomorrow, and then I'm having on the archives, from the archives, Judy Silvano and Joe Lovano on Thursday, and Friday a singer and a guitarist, Cindy Scott, who's a really good singer, and Brian Schwartz. Sorry, that's not Brian's last name. I forget his, I'm sorry, Brian. Anyway, I'm having them on. And he's a great guitar player, and they met in New Orleans, and they're just really great blend of style. And then Kathleen Grace, who's a really beautiful younger singer here, who's actually going through a really hard time. Since a few months back, she fell, and she damaged her brain, and she's been having some difficulty kind of coming back to normalcy, and which is terrible for anybody, but she is a lovely person and a beautiful singer. So my interview with her is on Saturday, and then Sunday, Lauren Kinnan from the New York Voices. And, we'll continue on. I think next week I'm having Flora Purim on.
The very first recording I ever did was on one of Flora's recordings.
Really?
Yeah.
That's cool.
It's too long a story to go into, but I got to know Flora and Airto, and that's one of the reasons I moved to San Francisco right when I did, because they were working a week at Keystone, and they got me in every night and introduced me to a lot of people, and she was doing this recording. It's called Stories to Tell.
Oh, yeah.
And I play, you can hardly hear me, I play electric piano on a little bit on one tune.
Wow.
That was exciting for me over at Fantasy Records. Yeah.
That's so cool. She's so nice.
Yeah.
And I think that she just finished a recording because she was
in Brazil, right?
Yeah, and she was going to be on a few months ago, but she was kind of the recording kind of popped in too much, to that time period. So yeah, she's going to be on next week. And another really interesting singer from Europe is on Monday, who I can't remember how I discovered her. She's really good. Elizabeth Contamanu, I think I'm pronouncing it correct. Brian Seeger, thank you, Dan. Not Brian Schwartz. God, it's terrible. That's the guitar player from New Orleans. But anyway, so she's... You guys would really like her. She has this very warm, low kind of sound and very earthy, organic, connected, singer. And she's I don't know how old she is, but she's not a young person, but yeah, she's really interesting. She's going to be on Monday, and Flora's on Wednesday. And Tuesday, a really wonderful sax player named Ben Clatworthy, who's English, but he lives in LA, and he's going to be on Tuesday. But yeah.
Have you ever had David Links on? You know David Links?
No, why do I know his name?
I think he's Belgian, but he's an incredible singer.
How do you spell his last name?
Linx. I think Mark first told me about him, but beautiful, beautiful stuff.
Cool. I'm definitely going to check him out. I've interviewed a few people from England. I've interviewed Norma Winstone, who is a friend of mine, and she's actually on a recording of mine, a recent recording. We're singing a John Abercrombie song that I wrote lyrics for called Hippodyville, and she happened to know that song. And I wanted her to sing with me on this recording that I did in England. And so we did this. And it was really fun because the tone of our voices is kind of similar. And also, when we scat, we seem to be connected to the same, musical flow. So I'll send you a copy of that too. But yeah, and then a young singer who's actually from Sweden. Oh gosh, my brain isn't working. Sarah Oshlag, but she was in England. And Claire Martin. You guys must know Claire Martin. Yeah. So and Dan actually put up the promotion for the Lena Horne tribute. He posted that.
Oh yeah. Of course, we don't do it anymore, but did it with Mary, and actually, what's her name? There was another singer who did it a couple of times. Her hit was "Band of Gold."
Yeah, was it the singer? Was that the singer who did the James Bond theme?
No, I can't. God, I'm sorry, I can't remember her name.
Well, I can actually look up Band of Gold, and let's just see.
But she did the Lena Horne concert a couple times.
Oh. Band of Gold. Frida Payne.
Frida Payne, yeah.
Yep. There you go. Well, Larry, I want to thank you again.
You're welcome. Thank you for having me.
Really been fun. Really, really nice. Thanks. I really appreciate you being here.
All right. Good.
And I hope we stay in more contact.
Yeah, I'll keep watching.
Okay.
Okay.
All right. Bye-bye.
Bye.